laid out. You have some pieces animated. Remember, we have about 15 words, and about 10 of those words are animated, at least. And then what we're going to do is I have my Illustrator comp here that has all my stuff in it. So I'm just going to make sure they're all turned on. And then just save this as just all. That way I know it's the one that has all of them lit up. It's not the one I'm using for organizing stuff. And then what I need to do is just bring in that one comp just to kind of lay out my stuff. Now you can use that as a layout for it. Or what you can do is just leave that as footage. Or you can do that as just a whatever you want to set it up as, right? So if I drag this to either a new comp if I don't already have one, because like in this one I've already kind of brought all my pieces together into one composition. If you don't have that set up yet, then you could just drag that to a new comp and it'll automatically size this to fit. And then you could just adjust your stuff. And then what I would do is go through and just grab the stuff that is relevant. So going back to some of these things. There we go. I have my sketching, my karate, my garden, my piano stuff. So I would just go and grab those comps. Remember, I have my comps folder here. So I can just grab the relevant ones. There's my cards. And yeah, close all these windows. Try to find a good, as you're working, like a good layout of stuff. Like this layout is kind of sucky. You have another screen, move windows to the other screen. Like typically I'll use either this on my other screen or my layers on the other screen, depending on how many layers I have. It just makes things easier if you can just see all the stuff right there without constantly resizing things. I can't do that for the video, so everything's just squished together. So I'm going to take my cards and just drop it down here. And then I know that the cards is going to go over there. So I need to pull it out so I can see where it's at. And then I can just position it right on top of where the cards is. Okay? So then you would just do that to the next one. So I go to family. I would drop that down. Drag family over on top of family. Now, like I said, you could do this just like I'm doing it, or you can just make your own layout. Okay? You can rotate things, move things, whatever you want to do to get it laid out. This is nice because it's already laid out. You don't have to worry about anything, big holes, guessing, whatever. And then once you're done, you should be able to turn that off and see your stuff coming up on the screen. Okay, so once I have this on here, then I can make a new solid. Sure. I'm going to colorize that. I'm going to go with like, come on, just had it. There's a tiny pixel, like a half a pixel between these two colors that I want. There it is. That should be good. I can always adjust it later. Now what I want to do is make all the stuff 3D also. That way I can take my solid here and position it backwards, scale it up. There we go. And then I could add some lights into the scene. Spotlight should be good, or a point light. Either one of these, spot or point, will be good. Those should give us some decent shadows once I click shadows. Okay, now inside each one of these things, because I have this as a 3D layer, it has material options on here, and I have to tell it, you're going to cast shadows. And then I could adjust some of the properties if I needed to. I don't think I need to on that. Let me go to cards. I'm only doing 2 just for time's sake. It's exactly the same for 100 of these if you have 100. Tell that to cast shadows. And then I'm just going to grab my light, and you can double click it to bring the options back up. Take the shadow diffusion down. Okay, so that softens the shadow. I can also take that solid and just push it forward. Right now it's so far back that I'm getting these like big shadows. If I pull it closer, oops, the other way, you'll see how the shadows are a little bit squished in better. Okay, just enough to kind of pull it off the surface so it doesn't feel like it's like really far in front of it. They're just a little bit closer, just kind of like a little way to separate it. And grab my light again, and maybe take the shadow darkness down. just so again it's just very subtle. And you'll see how that gives it another kind of neat look, because as the items are coming up, let's go to about there. As the items are coming up, we're getting the shadow for that too. So we're getting this really neat look. All right. Now, once I have all the items inside my scene, if I needed to, I could scale them up. If I decided everything was kind of too small for my scene, I could make the entire thing bigger if I wanted to. I could also create a camera. So if I went to a new camera, and I'm going to tell it to be a one node camera, that way it's just like positioning, and that should be good. And then I could look through the camera and then just change the position of it. And changing the position of it will get me closer or further away from the item. Okay, so that's another way that I could do that as a big thing, just grabbing the camera and moving it around. And then what I can do is take my pieces and just kind of offset them a little bit, just so everything's not coming on at the exact same time, that there's a little bit of gap between all these pieces. So you see how we have these two things kind of coming together at the end at different times. Now what we don't want is for this to last too long. So I would say if it lasts longer than 15 seconds, you're probably pushing it a little bit, okay? Maybe 15 is okay, maybe 20 is like really like way too long, all right? So just keep that in mind, that you want to make sure that the stuff is playing out nice. It also depends on how quick each piece is going, right? So if my family, if that one took an hour, not an hour, it took like 5 seconds to come out or 20 seconds to come out, that piece is too long. I need to shrink everything down. It should be a relatively quick thing that pops out. Okay? And then I could do the same thing if I needed to line stuff up. I can just go back to this. Obviously this is moving because I turned it into a 3D layer and I added this camera. I'm going to set that back to the front view. No. I can't turn it back to that. I gotta leave it as a camera. Okay, so I could drop all my other stuff in there too if I needed to. All right, and then once you're done, you're just rendering it out as a movie. Okay, so this will be your final movie. Just take that, make it into a QuickTime. This is the same settings we've been dealing with. Make sure you choose QuickTime and make sure you go to the format options and choose H.264. And just like I said before, if you end up with something enormous, like a gigabyte file, your settings are not right. You need to fix that. Hit OK, give it a name, make sure you put your stuff in there, Sarcona, AllAboutMe. Hit render, you'll turn in your entire folder, right? So your AllAboutMe folder, that gets turned in. So I should have all your artwork, your After Effects project, and your movie all in one, all right? Yeah, so that's that one. Now just a couple extra little things, ways you can animate stuff, just some kind of neat little tricks. Let's say I had a piece of text here or a piece of artwork or whatever. I can use this. If I wanted this whatever to come on, and I don't really like this in here, I'm going to go to, where's my paragraph? You're up. There you are. Oh, my character. There it is. All right. So another way I can kind of transition some of the stuff on here is by using different shapes or colors or whatever. So let's just say that I have, not that. Let me give this a color here. Let's say this. So I'm just going to animate this square going over that. So I'm just going to go here, there. There we go. Okay, so now this just goes like that. And then let's say I duplicated that and I made it come over here. And delete those keyframes. And then I made this, let's say, green or blue or whatever. All right. So I have this thing that is, again, kind of animated going from here and going down. Okay, grab these, make them easy. Cool. What I can do is take these, I would do the same thing for the rest of the 8 ever, and then I would pre-compose it. Recompose. Text. Boxes. Move everything into the new comp, hit OK. So now I just have one comp that has these things kind of popping in. And what I can do is take this whatever and just swap their order. Okay, so whatever's on top of this. And then I can use this as a track mat to say I want to use the alpha from that. So look now how I can use that other layer to kind of fade in with different colors on those different pieces. Okay, the letter isn't actually being moved around. It's just this fill is showing up inside there. So that's another way you can kind of reveal stuff, which is a neat little trick. And it works for anything. So if you just have some sort of object, another object, and you want to use that as a fill, you could do that. Like on John's here, he had something, I forget what word it was, but he wanted to have something fill it up, right? So he had like this water bucket, and the water's pouring down onto the thing, and then he has this like water like filling that up. Same exact thing. You could use that as a way to fill up something using different effects on it. Another cool thing that you could do is, let's say we had a piece of text. Text. I'm very literal. And then we wanted to show this thing coming onto the screen. We could do something very similar by just kind of drawing a path around it. Okay, and this path would basically be like how we want this letter to be drawn. So I'm going to take the fill off, and I'm going to take the stroke up, and let me give this a different color. And that point should probably come over just a hair. Oops. No, I just want to click on you. There we go. So like that, and then I'll click off, go to my pen tool. I'll create another piece of text right here, or another line right here. Cool. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm creating what's going to be essentially just like a mask, just like we just did. So I'm going to take these two shapes here, and I'm going to animate those two shapes kind of writing on, okay, just like I drew the lines. So I'm going to go into this one, oops, and I'm going to go to my contents, and I'm going to add in a trim path. So remember this one, we talked about that when we did our blips. So I'm going to say right here is the end. Let's rewind this to the beginning. We'll set a key. I'm going to go up a smidge, set this to 100. There's that, gorgeous. Let's easy ease that. I can go into my graph editor, set this to a value graph, and just adjust that a bit. Come on. It's moving up and down just a hair. I just want that to sit right there. We go. Okay. There we go. So that looks kind of fancy. So then I can take these keyframes, copy them, go to this one, go to the contents, add in a trim path, click on the end, paste those keyframes in. Okay, and then I could offset this one just by scooting that over. Okay, cool. So I do the exact same thing I did in the other one. I would take these two and I would pre-compose them. Text. And once I do that, I go back to my text and I say I want to use this as a alpha mat so that if I rewind this, you can see how it kind of like wipes it onto the screen. So you could use that for any number of things. Like my one that I did for sketching, where I just did linear wipes, kind of wiping them on, I could have also done that to kind of reveal those pieces coming out. If you had something very scripty-like, you could do that too, where it would just script into it. So just a couple things that, you know, maybe you'll need them, maybe you won't, but they're there so you have them, okay?